Tonight, we have an ABC News exclusive. The American who was held hostage in West Africa for 6.5 years is now telling his story on TV for the very first time. Jeff Woodke thought he was going to die. For a time, he actually hoped he would die, but now he's a free man. Our chief national correspondent, Matt Gutman, has the harrowing account of Woodke's years in captivity and his message to the U.S. government about all the other Americans still being held hostage abroad.
I didn't want to be taken hostage. I knew that's what was going on. I knew I was in trouble.
In his first television interview, Jeff Woodke is revealing for the first time the full story of his capture in the Central African nation of Niger and his 6 soul-shattering years as a prisoner. It began with gunshots that night in October 2016.
When the shots started, it went on for a long time. I came to my house, and I had my night guard, just a civilian, sitting right over there. He had his rifles next to him, to the left, and he looked up, and he said, "There's that vehicle." In my peripheral vision came a rifle barrel and muzzle flash, bright orange against a black background. And all of a sudden, I hit the dirt, and there were shots, and I could hear people crying, dying. I was on the ground, that was it. And then we drove and drove and drove and drove and drove. And drove and drove for a few days, stopping here and there.
Woodke says that what happened next made him feel like he was living in hell on earth.
I was wounded, I couldn't walk. They stripped me naked and they kept beating me in that truck. So I was a bloody mess, and their truck was a bloody mess. I tried to say stop, but they just kept beating me. And I figured, yeah, I hope the helicopters come and get us and blow up the truck, because I don't want to be a hostage. And they got me up into Mali, and I was lost.
So at that point, you're thinking, I would rather die than be held hostage.
Oh, God, yes. Yeah. I don't want to put my family through this. Really? No, that's not good.
His wife, Els, learned of the kidnapping a few hours later.
What did it feel like to hear that news?
Yeah. I always say it's like a bomb goes off in your life, and every part of your life is shattered and gone. I just fell apart. I think I must have screamed, "No, no, no," for hours.
Els says various government agencies and private hostage negotiators got in touch, grasping for more clues of her husband's whereabouts, but to no avail.
At Jeff's birthday, I would plant tulips on the amount of his years, and always trusting or hoping that he would see them bloom in the spring. So for me, I was never hopeless. How strange that sounds, but I was never without hope.
The good news for Jeff is that had it been ISIS, they would have executed him instantly. The bad news, it was al-Qaeda, and to them, he was a bargaining chip they wanted to keep alive, but barely.
I was put in a box for 2 months at first, when I first got with al-Qaeda to break me.
You were put in a box.
Basically, it was a grass, small hut. I could not lay down flat, and I'm not exactly tall. And I could touch, like that, I could touch both sides. I had to stay in there all day. They broke my hope. When I was in that box for 2 months, I disassociated numerous times. I thought I was dead. They hated me for being an American, for being a suspected security agent, for being a Christian, doing missions work, all those things, they hated me.
As the days turned to years, Woodke grew certain he'd never be free again. In isolation and chained to a tree most of the time, his prayers morphed from hoping for freedom to hoping for a swift death.
Well, how does one believe in God when one is put through that? When you see and you are a victim of such cruelty and you live through such misery?
Faith is a weird thing. I mean, you can lose all of it, at least think you have, but God's still holding on to you, whether you like it or not. I started praying that God would just kill me.
He lingered in that desperate space for years.
And so at what point did you realize that you might actually get out of this alive?
And I got a letter from the big boss, and he told me, in a week, you'll be with your family. And I gave it back to the zone commander. I said, this is a lie. And I was on a hunger strike. They took me away and gave me to another transport team, but these guys were hardcore. These guys were combat mujahideen, and they were nasty.
Woodke says they arrived at a camp the next day where another hostage was being held. French journalist Olivier Dubois, abducted in 2021 in northern Mali.
And so I sat down next to him, and then he spoke to me in French with a French accent, and I said, well, what's your name? He says, Olivier Dubois. And we both cried. And yeah, I just couldn't let him go.
You mean from the embrace?
Yeah.
You kept holding him.
And then he said, yeah, Jeff, we're going out. We're going home. You can go ahead and eat.
The two men were recovered by French security forces on Niger's western border.
The moment he stepped on Niger soil, that's when I got the call.
What was that like?
It was like 4:30 in the morning, and yeah. I just jumped out of bed, and all I said, it's over, it's over. It's almost as if the enormity of those 6.5 years is hitting me now. I don't know, it's a strange experience.
The French put him on a plane.
How weird was it to fly first class on an intercontinental flight after having slept on the floor for 6 years?
It was great.
Did you?
Pork. Wine.
The White House has said little about the conditions of Woodke's release, only saying the United States did not pay ransom or make any other concessions, and that it was a collaborative effort.
There were no swaps here. This was just hard, grueling, deliberate work by diplomats and other experts directly with the government of Niger to get him home.
The French government has also not fully explained the conditions of the prisoner release. Still, Woodke applauds the Biden administration for bringing him home. And he asks that the administration's efforts continue for the other Americans that remain wrongfully detained abroad.
There's a lot of work that still needs to be done, and there's no excuse why our government should treat us like we're things, bargaining chips. Treat us with respect and bring us home.
The past few months have helped his body and soul mend. And while he is home, he admits the road back from Niger is long.
You thought it was over, but it wasn't over.
Well, you know, there's a big aftermath, Jeff, having, coming home slightly damaged, that needs healing. So, we're still living it in that sense. The worst is over, but we're still living it in a certain way.
In some ways, it'll never be over for you, Jeff. I mean, you were still living through the PTSD.
It's a process, learning how to become a human again. So who are we now? What are we going to do now? That's what we're trying to figure out. That's what we're trying to figure out.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.